All right. Hey, everybody. Um, let's go ahead and get started with the live Q&A for Q1 of 2026. I think most of you are probably pretty aware that I'm not a pro at this by any stretch. This is the second time I've ever done this. So let's have a nice conversation. Feel free to make comments, ask questions in the chat. If I'm not clear in an answer that I give, feel free to ask for additional clarity. There is a slight delay between the chat and me speaking live, so just know um, we'll do our best. We'll get through this together. I mean, this isn't meant to be some professional event. I am not Bad Bunny on the Super Bowl stage. I am Scott DeMers, owner of Active Magic Games, creator of Dragon's Down, designer of Dragon's Down, um, who's just here to interact with the community. There are some outstanding questions that people have, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a vision into the mad mind, um, my mad mind, and give you all some clarity. Okay, so I did request from the Discord and BGG community some questions just to kind of get us started. And so I thought that was a decent place. And we're going to start right out of the chute with the most important question that has ever been asked of me. And this will tell me your response to this question or to my answer will tell me whether you are a Magic Realm fan or whether you came to Dragon's Down without any connection. And that question is, why is the elf card not printed horizontally on the class card? I laughed out loud when I saw that because I do come from the Magic Realm community. And so, for those of you who don't know, and by the way, my OCD as a kid always bothered me. The elf card in Magic Realm is not printed the same as all the other cards. It's actually printed sideways. I'm assuming it was to incorporate the art that they got, but who knows? But it's become this lore of that the elf card is different. I decided not to do that for obvious reasons with Dragons Down, but we're going to start there. There was a follow up question, and there were only, I was proud to say, only a few Magic Realm related questions that were asked. But one of those was, hey, is there any chance of getting the license for the cover of Magic Realm and doing an homage collector's edition storage box or something along those lines? There are no current plans. I have actually been in touch, oddly enough, with one of the artists from the original Magic Realm, um, and uh, he went on to it. He was a student when he did the original art for his part of Magic Realm, and one of the other artists was his roommate. Went on to an amazing career um, uh, working for Disney, doing set designs and various things like that. But Avalon Hill had hired some local folks from like the Maryland School of Art or something along those lines. And those were the people that created this really iconic look to Magic Realm. So I thought that was a pretty amazing story. Um, okay. Yeah, Dark Tower on my shelf. That is my original copy that I owned as a child, believe it or not. I would show you the rest of the office, but the cleaning has not occurred. This is my office for my professional career. This is also the offices of Active Magic Games, and it is also my game room. I think a lot of you know, if you followed along on Discord at all, that I recently downsized from about 800 games to about 100 games, and that's kind of what that looks like. So, yeah. Anyway, all right. Uh, Enough of that. We're not here to talk about my office. We're here to talk about Dragons Down. Um, I've roughly categorized these questions into questions about storage. Shocker there, right? It's become a pretty big game. Questions on gameplay, questions on game design in general, not specific to Dragons Down per se, and then miscellaneous questions that fell into other categories. I have not necessarily ordered these. If I'm not going down a path that is of interest, feel free to make a comment. Um, but I did like this one of these questions right out of the chute on game design. And the question was, Dragons Down seems to have a longer tail with more expansions than my other game designs. What is special about Down that keeps me developing? And that's a pretty simple but two-part answer. Number one, commercial viability, right? It's resonated the most. It's my most successful Kickstarter, my most successful game for sure. This Spring and Autumn, which is the game on the wall there, the artwork anyway from the box cover, is is one of my favorite designs. I'm a big fan of 4X games, and but it wasn't as successful and just didn't warrant. I do have actually developed an expansion for it, but it hasn't warranted the idea of actually trying to go to market with it as yet. And so that's a big part. Second one is Dragon's Down isn't a game as much as it is a game system that frankly has infinite uh, replayability in many respects. I have a vision, not a vision, but I wouldn't be surprised if 40 years after I'm dead, there is fan made content still being put out for the game system. So I plan on putting out a content to the extent that the people want to see it. But yeah, there may be a day, right, where I'm not here anymore, but hopefully the game will live on the game system. Okay, so let's get into a few other questions here that I thought were fair were pretty interesting. There's some real nice questions on gameplay, and by the way, I do have some spoilers. I'm going to share some things today that you folks may not presently be aware of within the game. Um, I know that I already shared a sneak peek at horses. We can take another look there because I figure I could go a little bit more detailed into how horses work. I thought there might be some interest in that. I also plan on showing some of the artwork from Eastern Reaches. It is final. We are in the process of getting quotes from China for the production of the game. Um, for those not, I always have to remind myself that not everybody's on Discord, right? You can freely play a public play test, which is not everything that's going to be in the game, but quite a bit of what's going to be in the game already for free on Tabletop Simulator. And so just know that I don't that that just know that you can do that, but I also have to remind myself that not everybody has done that. And so that's important to remember. Okay, um, let's see. Do I foresee adding any new modular systems to Dragons Down, like site exploration? Now, for those of you who attended the first Q&A, I did talk about an idea I had that I was exploring, which was that the idea that the legendary treasure sites would actually come as tiles and that you could actually explore them. So kind of delve into, say, these sites, to go into the Tomb of the Night and see what and see if you could adventure around. Um, I will say that I've actually changed my opinion there on that, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in just a moment. But so I don't plan on actually adding site exploration. I think the legendary sites work really well as they are, a little bit abstracted, working to awaken your imagination about what might be occurring when you roll the dice and get the champion's blade. The grave of the champion is actually what it's called, and I want you to kind of fill in those blanks as opposed to tangibly play it exactly. So that's one of the reasons why I don't want to do that. I so I the other another question was along the same lines, right? Hey, you've spoken about making those playable. Where does that stand? That idea is shelved for right now, and I'll explain why in a bit more detail a little bit later. Um, People have asked about new spells, right? And the idea of expanding them into the monsters even more. Let me assure you that is a key component. Some of my favorite moments in the game have happened when the Titan has teleported me to the middle of nowhere where I can't get back to civilization in time to retire. Or a game we played the other day, the Dwarf Warrior kept getting trans uh, converted into vapor form, right, by the lich. Those are some of the most, to me, that my favorite moments is when those monsters do something unexpected that forces you to have to adapt to the situation. So in Eastern Reaches, there are a lot more monsters coming that have spells, and I wanted to show you a few of those. Um, so let's see if I have any skills. Okay, let's. I'm not going to go through all the monsters, but I am going to go through a few. There's this concept of banshees that roam some of the riverlands. They're an undead creatures, and they have the ability to cast dark matter, which, as you know, is one of the spells that can convert the cubes that you use in combat, and so that can create some unexpected travesties in your game. There's the concept of these are like hellhounds. I call them death hounds. They're a guardian. There are two of them, and they worked in tandem as the protector of a treasure site. And they cast some of the new spells. And I think some of you know that there are 35 new spells coming in Eastern Reaches, and those spells are at a level higher than the spells that we've seen to date. So if you think in just roughly in terms of levels, there's this concept of level 1 through 5. The spells that are now added, and you can play these in the mod, are levels 2 through 6, right? And so 6 are now the most powerful spells in the game. They actually cause 2 wounds when you cast them. Let me see if I have one. I didn't grab one to show. I'll see if I can get one though, just to show here. Give me just a second. Um, so, like, let's talk about that malediction. Come on, baby. It's loading. Says it's loading. There we go. Okay. So this malediction spell that one of these death hounds, right? Okay, that's probably a good way. Let's cover that up. Does an individual melee attack. So here's what it is in my mind is, see that fog kind of coming off of the death hound. Imagine that same concept, or even in the recent Dungeons and Dragons movie where the evil witch was causing this affliction to come over the whole of the area. It is against everything in the clearing, including hidden heroes, and that's an important distinction. So it is supposed to be like this fog kind of manifesting through. Um, it affects everybody but the caster with a strength of 1, and so think of that. This is a monster that can actually get you in hiding, right? And so it's an attack on you. It causes a wound, right? Now, notice that it comes with 2 wounds, which for the Death Hound is not an issue, but for a hero casting it takes a lot to cast. It also has a timing of -10 from a length perspective. So if you can tie its speed, and this is not a fast monster, the attack is fast, but it's not fast at maneuvering, you can actually kill it first. And if you're playing with the closing the distance rules, of course, this attack is going to be the last thing that occurs in the whole turn. Okay? Now, take a step back, and so I'm going to close that down, come back over here. Now imagine that combined with Dark Presence, which is what the other Death Hound casts. That one, as you may recall, actually, I haven't showed this one, sorry. But this reduces your overall health of everyone in the clearing to 1 with a minimum of 1. So, hey, you're this like burly, dwarf warrior. Dark Presence hits, everybody is reduced by 1. you're now more vulnerable, you're more fragile. It affects everybody. So imagine these two kind of monsters working in tandem with each other. That's kind of the intent. Okay. Um, and so the point there on that one is it's an infinite hide with a special rule. I'm answering the question that Action Hines answered, which is how does it target you if you're hidden? It's an infinite target that has a special rule on the card that says this targets everybody, including hidden heroes. Okay, so that's an exception to the rules as written. Okay, so that's an example. Like we've had a lot of. Actually, you know what? Sorry, we're going to continue on. Let's show some more monsters, shall we? But that's an example of how the game system is evolving to include kind of these more unique circumstances and how magic can really do that. There's a concept of a water weird spell. Imagine that as being animating water to strike at you, and obviously this hag who's undead and has the ability to swim would cast that water weird, and it causes water to erupt from different locations and strike at you. Okay. Um, the Ifrit Pyroclasm. This is another one of the brand new powerful spells. You can see that they are being leveraged by the monsters. Pyroclasm is like a mega fireball that hits a larger number of people. The Lamia casts a spell called Mana Shield. This is also a new spell. The Mana Shield, the best way to think of it, bad example maybe, but like a force shield, maybe like those robots in Star Wars where they put up the shield. It takes a hit and just basically cancels the hit. It also cancels the shield. So it makes it invulnerable for one hit, is what Mana Shield does. You'll notice that the Lamia casts this very quick, puts all of its energy into casting the spell quickly on this side. It also has it's a long spell, meaning its length is 46. So even if you're playing with closing the distance, it's likely to go off first. And so you might be in for multi-round. The Lamia kind of sticks around, not necessarily to kill you. The other side does have an attack on it, but the intent here is just to be a pain in the butt, right? It just sticks around. It's hard to kill. And the Mana Shield being dispersed, it doesn't cause any wound to the Lamia when you hit it. And so you almost need 2 rounds to kill this thing if it doesn't flip over in that first round. There are merfolk in this game, and there are merfolk mages, and there are 3 of them, and each one has a different spell that does something unique. So again, just really want to bring up that magic into the game and make these monsters just pretty unique. This is my new favorite spell, Rot. It hits you, and then it just kind of continues to wound you each round, even without it hitting you again. Okay, that feels like enough. I don't want to spill all the beans there on some of these monsters that are coming, but this to me is really exciting. It's an exciting development for the game. It doesn't introduce any new rules. It is leverage the spells as written on the cards. So once you know how spells work, um, they just work within the system. Okay. All right. Any specific questions or anything I showed you? Oh, here we go. If not covered yet, I would like to get all the Dragons on content. Yeah. So possibility space, I literally just posted an update to the Kickstarter page about an hour ago. We're selling the extra copies of the game starting on February 16th, is when that opens. We have copies for sale in Europe and in the US. And I have links. It's a public Kickstarter update. So just go to the Natives and Legends Kickstarter page and you can see how exactly to buy the game. We do, at this time, have copies of everything. They're probably going to go pretty fast. I'm a small publisher. You are looking at Active Magic Games, right? And and so we don't do large print runs. We're not a major publisher. We're just publishing games to get them out to people who like it. Um, so anyway, just go there. And you can buy copies that way. It also explains how to get it if you're in Asia. So Asia, Europe, United States, Canada, you'd have to use a mail forwarder. Unfortunately, we are all sold out. I did learn that some copies of the game that were sold that were given to our fulfillment house in Canada did sell some copies to some retail stores, of which I have no list, but it is possible you could find a copy somewhere. But your best bet's probably just use a mail forwarder. Okay, and just know that the Eastern Reaches campaign is the next thing we're going to launch, and when we do that, you'll be able. The plan at this time is to offer everything all over again, all prior expansions, both standard and legendary editions. Um, though I am strongly considering that this will be the last time I offer the Legendary Edition in these earlier in these in the for the core game Desolation and Natives and Legends. We will always offer a Legendary Edition, such that people who have the Legendary Edition can get the Legend Edition is called can get the weighted chips to match their sets. But it's really difficult for a publisher of my size to offer these two different versions. So just know that it's likely that this will be the last time that you can get the Legend Edition. Okay, I feel like I have been so off topic from where I went. So in previous expansions, additional character boards were added to support more players. Since a lot of people also enjoy solo play, very true. 40% of our users of the purchasers of the game. Have we considered adding any additional solo exclusive content? So the short answer to that is no. I feel that's best answered through scenarios to create specific solo content. Um, and the reason I feel that way is I don't want to focus on one market or the other, considering that the game system itself works so incredibly well for solo. Uh, and multiplayer. So I feel like I'd be shortchanging one side or the other, making one side, if somebody's purely a solo player and I introduce multi content, they're going to go, that's not important to me. So I would rather focus on the overall experience, which has value for both solo and and multiplayer play. I'm going to throw in one exception to that. So I think some of you know that I'm developing some specific uh, cooperative gameplay modes, purely co-op, full co-op for the Wildlands expansion. Okay, um, those would be for both multiplayer as well as for solo multi-handed player. So think of them as like specialized rules to do two main things. One would be to allow a fully cooperative experience, have your friends over, you know, make peace with everyone, and don't have any risk of anyone nerfing your experience versus theirs. Win as a team, lose as a team, right? With minimal rule changes. I call that basic cooperative mode. And then there's another cooperative mode currently called Adventure Party cooperative mode, which is meant to simulate the D&D party experiences where, hey, a hero dies, you lost. It is all for one for all, and you have to, get to some amount of legend points or something along those lines, but you have to do that moving as a party, right? So it introduces some additional rules overhead, but I got to tell you that that mode has been really fun to play test. Okay, so just know that that's being developed. It's under development right now and currently planned to be in Wildlands. Okay, stay tuned on that. Um, this is a really important question. I'm excited about Eastern Reaches, but I do have a small concern that it might feel like more of the same. Could you share how expansion meaningfully changes or expands the experience compared to earlier ones? I'm guessing that this is a concern, especially since I have announced that the next expansion would be Wildlands, which is also 2 terrain packs. Right? Now, what I don't want to do is go, hey, it's just more content. There are 30 differences with Eastern Reaches versus what you've experienced before. Obviously, spells, pretty big one. right? Monsters that leverage magic more that I've already discussed. That would be one. Um, New legendary sites that act differently. New terrain, so that introduce new rules to the game. So, for example, the rivers include new rules about how to ferry around the map. So, this is the civilization location for the rivers, and what you can do is you can leave from a dock and pay a ferryman to carry you up or down the river, and it costs one move action. I don't remember. I don't think I have. Let me just check something real quick. I don't think I have any other river tile. Yeah, I do. Let me grab this. So these are two river tiles, and you can see how these would fit together, right? If the orientation was correct. But imagine, if you will, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to spend the time to try and size that perfectly. But you could, if these were connected, you could move from this port location, right? One, you could go one to here, and let's pretend it was connected to here. You could go two, three, four, right? You're covering four clearings. It happens in one move, or in this case, two moves, because you're moving into a swamp clearing, right? Which costs two movement. That's the point. But so the point is it costs one move action plus one if you're moving into a swamp or mountain, etc. But to move any distance from one dock to another, the cost is the number of clearings that you pass. So in this case, if I was in clearing one, I would pay one, two, three, four gold and two move actions to move to here. I would have cleared a large distance. I felt like money, like my experience was, I didn't want money to be a victory condition. At least not in a scenario, great, but not in the core game. I wanted it to be a means to victory condition, right? Hence, buying titles. Your money is used to get better equipment or to try and claim some title that gives you LPs. And now introducing another use. The entire rules for ferrying, I don't remember exactly. It's probably like half a page, three-quarters of a page. So it's light rules overhead, and that was by design. Oh, I don't want to show that yet. That's later. Um, but the same thing holds true for the deserts. So in the deserts, um, you'll notice that there's a new desert clearing type, which are those orange ones. Spending If you are in one of those clearings at the end of your turn, you automatically take a wound. The intent here, and that's those are the rules. Now, the way that I've introduced additional fun rules for the deserts is, number one, the various things you're going to encounter in that particular tile, right? You can see some of the monsters that are there, but also the specific, very thematic Middle Eastern, Egyptian, and Middle Eastern style treasure sites and whatnot. But what the deserts add is there are treasures that work better or slightly differently or enhance the desert, right? So there's one pair of boots. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but if you were in this clearing right here and you move, if you have them equipped, one move allows you, sand strider boots, that's what they're called, allows you to move any number of clearings for the one move cost because they allow you to walk through the desert. So you could move off this tile from here. You could move one, two, three to here. Okay, for one move action. All right. So anyway, just probably way more detail than you actually wanted, but the 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 game is there's I'm not content with just adding you know more content. I'm I want to add small rule set that drives new strategies in the game. That's the goal. Okay, and again, feel free to ask any questions If I didn't go deep enough, probably not the problem. Getting me to shut up's the problem. Okay. Have I thought about creating some mini expansions, something like a one-tile volcano that counts as mountains and caves for monster tiles and has unique site or location effects? Is now the time to talk about the plan? Um, yeah, let me hold off for about 5 more minutes on that. I'm gonna lay out exactly what I see as the life cycle of Dragon's Down, including all expansions that I plan. I'm gonna lay that out today. So instead, let's cover a couple other things, right? So there was a question, I don't remember the exact way it was asked, but hey, Chris, welcome. Um, so somebody had asked me about, hey, in Magic Realm, Magic Realm was amazingly deep, right? And it had the kitchen sink, proverbially speaking. One of the things that's in Magic Realm that never appealed to me was weather. So this is currently planned for Wildlands, but I am working on a weather module for the game. And the beauty of it is the way it's currently incarnated, and we'll see, right, where it's undergoing play testing, is it's the flip of like five or six, seven cards. And it also works as a turn tracker for your game as well. I'm not going to share anything specific on that today, but just know that I hated weather in Magic Realm. And after playtesting, I think I'm 3 games into playtesting the weather. I'm not convinced I'm ever going to play without it again. It's that simple to implement, and is that uh, it makes that big of a difference. And I'll give an example. I was in a tile where it was cold. The weather was cold, and the cold weather rules state that you either take a wound or have to spend an action, and which is roughly equated to building a shelter, keeping doing something to keep warm. And so because I didn't want to take a wound, I spent that staying warm, which meant I couldn't sneak. Right? What happened? Bad roll of the summoning dice. I think it was kobold. Six kobolds arrived in my tile. And the other interesting aspect of it was, since it was my fourth action that would be spent, right? I couldn't move into a cave. Shelter, including caves, protects you from the cold. So a simple card that said the weather's cold. Here's this one simple overlay rule that affects the map, so to speak, caused me to not want to take a wound. So in the process of not wanting to take a wound, I instead had to fight 6 kobolds, and of course was torn to pieces. Yeah, exactly, Jack. I should have invited them. Should have just invited them to the campfire. Probably a campfire that brought them to me, is what I'm guessing. Anyway, so just that's kind of what I'm committed to. I'm committed to the game not becoming more complex than it is. The level of complexity that you currently play the game is the level of complexity that I'm committing to you. I intend to keep in the game. Okay, so a fairy rule, a weather rule, fine, but it's not like anything that is so cumbersome to implement that you just can't do it. Okay. Um, One thing that people have pointed out, and then I'm going to talk about the future of Dragon's Down. One thing that people have talked about is game balance. Hey, when the number of spells in the game, or sorry, when the number of treasures in the game or spell books in the game, when I first bought the core game, there was, it was a fairly high percentage, whether good or bad. It was an incentive to play a spellcaster because you can get some free legend points off of those. However, right? However, in as I've added Desolation, Natives, and Legends, and then we're going to add Eastern Reaches, you start to get to where you go, because we've added new treasures, now the percentages are off from the initial game. Is that a problem? Right? And the short answer is The level of detail that I've put into the analysis of how many, 4% of treasures, I have every factor calculated to my own detriment. You know, 4% of treasures fit in a weapon hand, right? 3% go on a finger or gloves or rings, right? Things like that. And the same logic goes into the balance of number of spells and whatnot. So just know we're going to be doing some things to bring the balance as I add expansions or keep it. I got to bring it back in line a little bit. It's a little bit out of line, which you'd never notice from playing the game. But we're going to bring it back to where what I originally had in the core game is going to be, in essence, the percentages regardless of the expansions. Okay? Nobody probably cares about that. You're probably just, hopefully, just enjoying the game, but know that it matters to me. I'm probably a freak about that. Okay, should we talk about the future of Dragons Down? So I'm going to do it by way of, I'm going to show you something, and it will be a hint as to the future of Dragons Down. Bear with me for a moment. The time is now, possibility space. You are absolutely correct. Okay, this is the current model for the summoning dice, the summoning die that gets included with Eastern Reaches. I'm not going to introduce, so we have Riverlands and Deserts, and so it's a new die. So you add one die to what you roll. It doesn't change any of the probabilities of monsters being summoned to a cave or a mountain or any other tile. Okay? That's first and foremost really important. I didn't want to go to an 8-sided die and then a 10-sided die and then we add another 6-sided die. That also provides a nice limit, right, to what terrain packs we're going to offer. So what do we see here? We see a monster's return arrow, has a little circle in it. That is merely to differentiate between the existing monster's return arrow or not. So by including one arrow on here, we'll have monsters move around on a map tile as well as return back to the monster trays more frequently. If you don't want that and you only want the original 1 in 6 chance that monsters are going to move around a tile where a hero is or return to the monster tray, you can ignore the arrow with the dot in it. That's why that's there. In the corners, upside down for TTS mod rules, are the 2 terrain packs planned to be in Wildlands. You can surmise that one of those are hill lands and one of those is jungle. Okay, those aren't the actual names I'm using, but those are and I just posted this. I just updated the description of Dragon's Down Wildlands to specify what the 2 terrain packs. Those have been undergoing testing for months now. My hope is that we have a mod that we can roll out to the community after an Eastern Reaches campaign. Okay. And then you got that goofy symbol, right? If anyone has a guess as to what that is, we'll come back to it in just a minute. All right. But that would imply there's one more terrain pack that's going to be released into the game. The reality is it's not. Those are the terrain packs. Yeah, Elder Sign is probably not a bad guess, Teresa. So Wildlands would be the last, what I would call major desolation level, Eastern Reaches level, natives and legends level expansion for the game, where we introduce additional terrain packs. Beyond that, and I think we really start stretching things, right? I know there's Barren, there's Astral Plane, there's, 1,000 things you could do. But the user or the fan who asked the question about, are you planning on adding, what did he say? Thought about creating mini expansions, something like a one tile volcano that counts as mountains and caves and blah blah blah. That's what that symbol represents. Chris, your guess what I've called this the Mordor symbol, though that's not what it actually will be. Um, and so what I would do, and again, this is all where I have a really clear vision now. So I think this is going to happen, but there is a possibility that some other wild idea comes to me. But what that would allow me to do, that symbol, is that's like a special summoning symbol, and I would have map tiles like a volcano, or I'm making this up, but like haunted island, an astral plane, and each of these would be a single tile that has specialized rules for it. So this would be the expansion after Wildlands, and the intention would it be 5 very unique tiles. Mix them randomly. Put 3 into your tile stack when you're building the map, and those 3 are going to be the ones in play. That would allow me to release other mini expansions, 5 tiles, 2 tiles, 1 tile as a special thing, all of which would have this one symbol. You don't use all of them. God, that would be wild, huh? Playing on a map of all those, but that would allow me to then go from these major expansions that take me years to develop to mini expansions that would allow me to do reprints if I need to and introduce some really fun, unique experiences. This also theoretically could allow the idea of, a keep on the borderlands or some type of, you know, um, almost like a more highly developed scenario. Okay. All right. So that's kind of where I see this going. And and then what that allows me, the other thing that allows me to do is if I kind of say that's enough, because that would be 9 terrain packs, not counting the special. Oh, sorry, I didn't know I'm on video anymore. Sorry, folks. That'd be 9 terrain packs, right? Who has a table large enough to play 9 terrain packs right now? And that's not counting the special one, right? The reality is unless I'm at a convention where I'm slapping tables together, I'm the designer of the game. I'm probably not playing with 9 terrain packs. Now, my variability is massive. I'm going to grab 3 of 9. When's the next time I'm going to pick the same 3 randomly, right? So just know that that's really the intention, is to keep this so fresh for you folks and completely expandable from 1 terrain pack to really 9. If you really do have the large enough table and want to do it, you can do it, right? And then I can also, without doing more 4-inch boxes, which yes, I hear you, and I have an update on that as well. Um, but what I could do then is I could publish individual card packs of treasures, or legendary sites, or whatever, right? I can add additional content to the game once I have a fully fleshed out ecosystem of tiles and terrain packs. Okay, there you go. That's what I see as the future of Dragon's Down as a game system. And beyond that, if I'm now at the point of where I'm just working on mini card packs or something along those lines, additional treasures, that also frees me up to port some version of the Dragon's Down system to other environments, right? Cyberpunk, outer space, planetary expansion. Um, it's limitless, right, as to what could be adventuring in other worlds. Okay, so that's the intention. Hard to tell if this resonates and you go, hey, I like that idea, or I loathe that idea. So please feel free to comment. I don't have an ego about this. I'm not saying I'm right. I am talking a little bit about, what I'm able to do. I'm just talking about, what am I capable of? what am I not capable of? So, um, yeah. Let's see. There was one other thing I wanted to mention on those on the idea of expansions. Yeah, in answer to your question, Teresa. So Teresa asked the question about keeping it simpler versus more complex and all. Yeah, I don't. I can see there being, you know, not boss level per se, but like the monsters, they all follow a formula. Every single thing in this game is a spreadsheet. It's a formula, and I calculate out what the fame value of a monster should be based on this formula, this well proven formula. And none of the monsters that I'm introducing are the top toughest monster in the game, highly dependent on the class you're playing and things like that, right? Is still the Great Drake, toughest monster in the game. So that I don't see that changing. Okay, so I'm not really. It's not like there's not scope creep. Maybe is the way to word that in that regard. Anyway, so to me, it gets really exciting. I mean, it's I've enjoyed every not every day, but I have enjoyed every step of this journey, um, and just know that uh, I want to have an end, but but it being an open ending, such that we could continue to add really cool, exciting content as ideas come. Um, and that was what the special symbol would allow. Timing of Eastern reaches. So this one's a little more nuanced. Um, I'm getting quotes from China. I need to understand what the costs are going to be so that I can know what to do. My partnership with Mr. B Games has, in essence, come to an end. So Sean Brown is my most valued partnership. I've worked with him for 10 years doing games. He published my first game 10 years ago, and everything I know about board gaming from a publishing and design standpoint comes from Sean. He sold Mr. B Games last year. And in the process of selling, there, as many of you know, there were some bumps and transition challenges and whatnot that occurred, and those, and frankly, I think still occur to some extent. We had segmented where I'm the designer and I ran the Kickstarter for the first time under my own banner. It's the first time I've ever had visibility into the Kickstarter backers and all that stuff. He ran the pledge manager, which is all about the fulfillment. He managed getting the games over from China to wherever they needed to be. He had the distribution network. He had the connections. The folks who did the fulfillment on this game in Kentucky are that was one of several companies in the umbrella of the company that bought Mr. B Games. And then there were some transition challenges. Let's just leave it at that. And Sean is no longer with Mr. B Games, and I will not be working with Mr. B Games moving forward. Because of some of the frustrations I felt, on behalf of my backers, I'm going to handle customer support myself. I'm going to have the direct relationship with fulfillment centers globally, and I am going to run um, run the pledge manager myself. In addition, right, I will be solely responsible and I will have full visibility of everything so that when, somebody emails me and says, hey, I didn't get my game, I can literally look up and go, hey, it shows it was delivered on Tuesday, or hey, you haven't paid shipping. That's why. I don't have access to any of that information right now. And my friendship and partnership with Sean Brown is very important to me. He will continue to be my partner on these games, helping me get the games over from China. I don't have the slightest clue about how to do that. And so he'll still be part of it, but I'm going to have my hand and my ability at full visibility of all information. Okay. So let's see. And then maybe the other part. So I was talking about why Eastern Reaches, hasn't launched or whatever. I launched in January, rough time to launch, especially, not being so stupid as to not anticipate the tariffs were going to hit. In a place where 85% of my games are sold, which is the United States. So that financially was disastrous. We're on great financial footing, my company, but but it's not like, to date, I haven't really been profitable. I mean, there's been a little bit, but across, my most successful Kickstarter to date. And, but it certainly has funded the company such that we can do the next campaign and move on and do some good things. But I also have some personal things, right? Like, I'm caring for my elderly mom now. She's literally in the room right next door to me right now. She's moved in with me, and so just life, right? Life. And I live by the 90-year-old rocker rule, which says when you're 90 years old and on your rocker, what are you going to look back on and be proud of? Um, and it's, making the right decisions, doing the right things, doing your best to always be fair, despite what some people will say about you online. So I think the 90-year-old rocker rule is something that's really important to me, and I'm never going to have regrets about, the time that I'm carving away from the rest of my life in order to do the right thing in this circumstance as well. Okay. All right. Enough on that. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about game design. So, actually, no, I lied. Let's talk about storage. Let's talk about 4-inch boxes. Hey, do you think that poll on Discord was definitive? People want a smaller box. We went with the 4-inch box for Natives and Legends, uh, primarily for two reasons. One is the ease of doing that. The second was the ability to provide, fixes for the storage solution. The bin wasn't deep enough, as you know, so I wanted to be able to provide that to people. And then the factory kind of messed it up, made it taper. It still works, but you got to put something underneath the tiles, right? Um, will we go into smaller boxes? Let's start with that statement. Okay. And I don't know what that means size wise. There's Eastern Reaches is approximately, it's actually a little bit bigger than Desolation. And I am committed to providing a solution for people, right? That doesn't include, having a 3D printer or buying an aftermarket storage solution. Even though the primary reason that inserts exist in a game is to make sure it gets to you safely, I did receive some comments about the fulfillment house not using enough filler and boxes getting dinged, but very seldom do they hear about components inside the box being damaged. And that's the primary purpose of that stuff. Um, so TBD, but I would envision, I'm guessing it's probably going to be a 3-inch box. I just don't know yet. I have some ideas, but I don't know for sure yet. So just know we're looking into that. Um, I probably won't retrofit it, but it's possible I could to Natives and Legends. I wouldn't do it to Desolation, I don't think. But just know that, for like future print runs. I also am not really big on people having different size boxes from different size print runs that they've done, right? But the most important question here is, hey, what about an all-in-one box or something like that? Yeah, on a final major campaign, I will offer some type of a big box solution. Okay, that's TBD what that is going to look like, but I will get it to where it'll be a one box solution. Um, I'm looking at you terraforming Mars, but just know that I'm committed to figuring that out. Yeah, the Brew Geek. We have another Kickstarter for Eastern Reaches, which is all about deserts and riverlands. So that will be the next campaign. It's been ready to go from a content standpoint since October, but I don't have the quotes from the factories on prices and that kind of thing. And with the uncertainty and having to get Sean Brown get his situation figured out, you know I, I do have a full time job, and I'm not about to I just don't want to be in the business of trying to track down why a freighter hasn't arrived or why it got hit with an extra tariff or whatever. So I'm really committed to outsourcing that to somebody who knows what the heck they're doing on behalf of all of you. Okay. Yeah, and let's even go a step further. Is there? I would envision that if we did some type of big box solution, maybe even partnering with somebody um, who has the proper skills to design a specific solution that goes beyond. I'm a huge fan of the monster trays that come with the game. I know some people have said they're a little bit thin, and I get that. But man, for ease of setup, grab the monster tray for the woods, grab the woods stuff, and you're ready to go. And I'm a big fan of that. But I would be interested in partnering with somebody to come up with an actual design solution for that big box that would be all encompassing. That's kind of the thought. Okay. Yeah, Brew Geek, you're coming in late, man. Yeah, the intention is to. I think I covered this. The intention is to offer everything to date in the Eastern Reaches campaign. So yeah, and again, the Kickstarter update that I posted about 2 hours ago is public. So even if you didn't support the prior campaigns, you can go and read the information that I posted there. Okay. Uh, any further questions on storage? Does that answer the questions that you had, or are there other questions that might be there? Okay, let's talk about the other. Let me just read through this real quick. When will the Kickstarter campaign for Eastern Reaches launch? It's ready to go. Once I have prices, then I have to build the campaign. And what I mean by that is build it in Kickstarter. I have some outstanding questions that I have to answer um, around partnership and those kinds of things, right? And then the other part is the wild card of my real life and making sure that uh, when I do it, I have to be all in for all of you. And so, um, I would tentatively say in the next 2 months, but life could throw me a curveball, right? I mean, even just think about it. Like we're February 11th. We enter tax season. As you guys can imagine, my taxes are redonkulous. And so, you know, it could easily be 3 months, right? But just know it's ready to go outside of like the final price and all that and on the quotes. Any chance of metal fame and metal LP coins? That never interested me, but that doesn't mean it isn't valuable because I know y'all want a heavier box, right? It's just too light. It's just too easy to port around. Um, yeah, I could see myself doing that as in, again, think like that final major campaign or something along those lines as being something that we would do. Okay. Have I thought about a digital version of the game? Yes and no. I personally haven't thought about it. Um, but I have been approached and have had some what I would call preliminary discussions on doing that. And I would be very interested if you are a developer or if you're a studio. I would be really interested in that. Okay, Supreme Court will release a ruling on tariffs eventually. Am I planning to wait until after that ruling is announced? The short answer, no. But what I am going to do is I'm going to build the tariff cost directly into the anticipated tariff cost, which currently is in, I think, the 45% range. I'm going to build those into the cost of a pledge level, right? And I'm going to do that for U.S. backers, right? And that's just is what it is, right? So there you go. Okay. Doug, your question. Doug asked a question. I don't, rather than anybody read it, I just Doug asked the question about what about the idea of using dials? To me, that feels like an aftermarket solution because somebody can do that, frankly, better than I can. And why increase my cost for something that might not get used, as opposed to the tactile feel of these are the coins that I'm transferring or that kind of thing. So I don't have any plans on doing dials. I would love to see somebody come up with beautiful, elegant dials. Somebody who has more skills than we do on creating those. So that would be the way I'd approach that. Um, okay. A few other things. Let's talk about some game design aspects. So I've been designing board games for a long time. So this is, let me just read these real quick, just to make sure I commit them to memory. Uh, right. Yeah. So as far as the pre-canned rules, so get your questions in so that I can answer anything that's outstanding. I'm down to like my last, 4 or 5 questions so far. And it can be, literally about anything. I don't mind. The remaining questions that I have are largely around game design. So, the first one, and these aren't necessarily in any particular order. I'm just as I had scribbled them down. But I've been designing board games for a long time, since I was 7 years old, if we're going to be specific about it. I distinctly remember at the 1976 bicentennial being upstairs with my brothers playing a board game that one of them had designed, instead of being downstairs watching the bicentennial um, um, fireworks and celebrations and whatnot. So if that tells you anything about how old I am, I don't know what would. What are some of the top things I wish I knew before I got started? Or what top advice would you give young aspiring board game designers? Um, Find out what your motivations are for doing it, right? Um, there are people who think there's money in this, and the truth is there is money in this. Just like there's money in everything, if you're passionate about it, if you commit to it. Um, Stone Games, right? Jamie has built an amazing thing from a passion. What an amazing thing! The likelihood that you as a game designer are going to get to that level of success, like a wingspan, um, it's highly unlikely, right? This is my most successful Kickstarter. I probably sold 3,000 copies across what, 2 Kickstarters, right? We're probably in that range. I think that would be a massive failure for Stonemaier Games. Right? They would go, we lost so much money on that one. We have all these copies sitting in a warehouse, right? And I'm sitting here going, it's my most successful one, and I'm gonna continue investing in it, right? So you have to have the right motivations. Um, there's a common question about like, hey Scott, why do you design these games that frankly are pretty niche, right? Instead of designing something more mainstream that has the chance to be the next what's that exploding kittens, right? Number one is designing exploding kittens would have been excruciatingly painful for me because it's just not where my interest lies. So I designed these games to play. I was on a live stream every Wednesday. I'm on this live stream called the Weekly Alaboom on Undead Vikings stream. I'm not there every weekend, but or every Wednesday, but I'll be on there later tonight. And you know, we talk a lot about, well, what were your motivations and why would you do it? And um, man, you just gotta love it, right? Why do people, why do people fly to see a cross country skiing event? Because they love cross country skiing. Pretty straightforward, right? So make sure your motivations are in the right place. Uh, hey, Possibility Space, just do a search for Undead Viking. It's a YouTube channel literally called Undead Viking. And my dear friend Lance Meister, who has been in the industry for a long time, currently works for Grey Wolf Games. So, um, and just know it's tangentially related to board games, like the other people on there. It's a bunch of board game designers and reviewers and stuff, and it's anywhere from 3 to 6 people on there. Scott Alden, who owns is the founder of Board Game Geek and owner of Board Game Geek, is on there every week as well. But it's intense. It's a personal stream. Just I want to be clear. We do talk about board games, but it's more like geek culture or that kind of thing, and it's pretty unfiltered. You'll see me get riled up sometimes. So not necessarily for everybody, but I do appreciate the relationships I built through that stream. Um, but top advice: make sure your motivation's in the right place. Second part is most good games are developed via spreadsheet in some way, at least in my opinion. I've shared this with some people that, my spreadsheet on this game is, 150 tabs of numbers. And if I lost that spreadsheet, I probably would just, walk off a cliff because there's no way I'm recreating it, right? And you can't half-ass it. You really have to put in the work, but you have to enjoy the work too, right? It's like, because it doesn't feel like work, man. When I've had a bad day for whatever reason, I want to go and design something for Dragons Down. Okay. And possibility space. If you do grab that link, feel free to post it in the chat as well. Okay, this is a great question. I really enjoyed reading this one. It's a little bit long. I'm going to read it. As a game designer, I like to. So whoever posted this was a game designer, and I humbly apologize. I don't remember who posted it, but I did. I think I did actually send you a private message on Discord, but I didn't get a response. As a game designer, I like to think of the scale or resolution of a game, mainly regarding the time and events of actions and turns. Dragons Down is a turn a day, which, by the way, I never define. That's something that basically people from Magic Realm have brought to the game. I did purposely avoided saying, this is a day, which Magic Realm explicitly does. And the only reason was I did want to, again, unlock imagination there. But um, so actions and events are hours in my mind. Even battles I see not just as swinging swords, but events that take place over hours. Dragons flying overhead as our heroes move from thicket to thicket to get out of an attack, or to try and get in an attack. Some games, such as Fawnland, have turns that are a month long, so actions are week long, excursions and encounters. Dungeon crawls like Gloomhaven, where turns might be seconds long. Each of these has its place, and fans like one style or the other. Do you ever think of design in this same way? After you're done with your plans for the current Dragons Down, do you still have ambitions for a game with a bigger scale view that the games of Dragons Down can sit within? Party building, town development. I know others have asked more dungeon crawl level. Um, but there's also, it's a dungeon crawl. There's also larger scale, right? So, um, yeah. So the short answer on that is theme always comes first to me. Like what thrills me isn't that when somebody says to me, oh, the combat system sucks, or the combat system is so innovative, or boy, you really, is so tactical, it's so thinky. It's such a wide design space. Those mean a lot to me, right? That's really nice of people to say those types of things, right? But when somebody talks about what their feeling was, like if any of you have read I forget the exact title of Teresa's post on Board Game Geek today, but it was a session report called "The Black Knight Got What He Deserved" or something along those lines. Those thrill me to no end. Reading the hysterical stories that have happened is just, the when people are like pulled into the world, that's right there is why I design these games, right? I've had people send me messages saying my son and I bonded over this game in a way that we had never. We my son didn't want to do anything with me. We play Dragons Down together. Right there, that's why I do it, right? So I do have ambitions of other games, right? I Dragons Down is my favorite game. I play it. Um, on that Undead Viking stream, I talked about. We did like our top 5 favorite games we played last year, top 10, and Dragons Down was mine. I then was immensely ribbed and hazed for it, but the reality is I play this game far more than I play any other game, and it's not just play testing, right? I get giddy being a half orc bard wandering into the swamps. That excites me. That's really fun for me, and I love doing it. And I'm not a solo gamer. Um, but I would love to explore other design spaces, both for Dragons Down as a system, right? Exploring the Nostromo, in an alien style world, or you know, terrain packs are planets that you explore, maybe with more than 5 tiles, right? And then you could combine them if you wanted to. The rules system would have to work, but so sci-fi or cyberpunk. and I'll throw this out to the community. I'm open to the idea of co-designing something as well, taking the system as it exists, modifying it for the specifics of the situation, and going. I now own a publishing house. Active Magic Games is a publishing house. So if you wanted to do something with one of the systems, with the Dragonstown system, I don't have time to focus on everything. I would easily co-design and advise on something like that. Ever thought about designing a game inspired by Titan? That's another Avalon Hill classic from, again, the same time zone. Short answer is not necessarily. I'm intrigued by the concept, but I think Titan's just such a fundamentally different style of game. I will go back to designing other types of games at some point. Retirement for me. For those of you who don't know, I retired for 18 months, and then I went back to work 1 year ago, like 2 days ago, 1 year ago. Um, and I'll retire again here, in the not too distant future, as well. And at that point, I don't relax well, so we'll focus on board game design. Okay, that's the end of my list of questions. Okay, so yeah, uh, yeah. So Teresa threw out this comment about, where you could just spend, just an immense amount of time in one massive board. I agree. You build a 9 terrain pack board, and you're going to explore you're going to die on the first tile sometimes, right? So you're going to go adventuring through the whole system, and that you could never touch that map. You can touch that map for 10 game systems, 3, 5 games sessions, right? Okay, so what haven't I talked about today that anything that you folks are curious about or want to see? I feel like this has been a stream of consciousness of me rambling at a camera. I want to make sure I respond to anyone who has questions. So I'll pause here. I'll shut up. Um, Maybe I show a few images from Eastern Reaches while we ponder. Yeah, let's just do that. That'll be fun. All right. Maybe I won't comment. I'll just show some images. Let's do that. Another way to call spells, right? Let's do this. There's a treasure that's been asked for quite a bit. Yeah, shenanigans. I did talk quite a bit, probably too long-winded as usual, about storage solutions, and kind of what the thought process is, also box size, that kind of thing. Satchel of Suppression. Oh, yeah. Allows you to take a red backpack card and place it face down inside the satchel. So a couple times I could have used that bad boy, huh? Canopic jars. I've talked about this, I think, before. This is my favorite new treasure in the game. So if you get both canopic jars, what happens? Canopic jars are in ancient Egypt. They were where they stored the pharaoh or other high-ranking members' internal organs for the afterlife, so that they were safe. The mummy itself was actually a hollow body. So the canopic jars, if you find both of them, um, you immediately basically you create like a simulacrum of yourself in the nearest civilization location. So if you die, you you return. You don't die. You just instantly teleport to that clearing, wherever that civilization location, and you just continue the game as normal, except you're also undead. So beware the cleric with the turn undead spell, who could literally kill you immediately with a spell. I just think that's a hoot. How many times will it come up? Probably not that often. This is not a deep treasure. This is a regular treasure, so you can find it at merchants. But think of the game you play where you find the one time in 50 games where you stumble upon both canopic jars and get them and become in essence invincible for one turn and then or what until you die. And so you go, whatever, I'm not going to sneak anymore, and then you die, and then you're this like undead half orc bard. Something tells me that's a terror, right? What a cool idea. um yeah, Lauren, in response to your question about the reveals for the Eastern Reaches Kickstarter, they're all done. Yep. It's going to be a 2-week campaign, which should tell you there are going to be 14 daily reveals. So there, in reality, there's 15, but let's call it 14. So then we surprise you with that last one. There are 14 things, some minor, some major, that nobody's seen in the public playtest. And one I've already talked about it, which is horses. Speaking of, we'll cover horses in just a second. So um, anyway, oh cool, Jack, you encountered it already. Yeah. So, yep. So what you're if you play the public playtest online, you're getting, I don't know exactly, 70-80% of the game, but as you can imagine, we've held back some pretty cool stuff. Okay, let's see what else do I got here. Oh, yeah, let's oh, that's right. I was going to reveal something to you. So I'm going to show you one of the daily reveals today, just like I showed you horses last time, and I will talk about horses in just a minute, but I also have um let's do it this way. So these are the four. Oh, I do have horses here. Okay, cool. We can talk about the horses. Where the heck am I? I have all these stuff. I apologize, folks. I'm a little lost in my own things. Okay, so let's talk about. Okay, let's go here. This particular treasure allows you to take a spell that you know, transcribe it into a spell book or a scroll, and as a reward, you receive a cube matching the color of that spell. You sacrifice the spell. But, so what? Maybe it's a duplicate, or maybe it's a spell you don't think you're ever going to use based upon the way the game's gone. Get yourself an extra cube so you can be more powerful in another color of magic, for example. Okay? Staff of Thaumaturgy. This is probably my favorite magical item in the game, in that when you do an enchant action, you can place a cube on this card instead of enchanting the tile and then carry it around with you. Once you place it on a wound cube, a wound box on a spell, the cube goes away, right? Or if you ever unequip it, the cube goes away. But this is a way to do an enchant that follows you around. So, pretty big fan of that one. Tactician's Grasp. You can move a cube from your attack speed to your maneuver speed, or vice versa. Assuming you have an open box, that cube gets wounded at the end of the combat round. Okay. The Adventurer's Toolkit. It's nothing other than it's just a bunch of stuff in there. A treasure, an item, a mission that stays attached to the Adventurer's Toolkit so it doesn't count against your 2 limit. And then there's a spell attached to the bag that you can learn right out of the toolkit if you have the right color magic. This is one of those examples of a treasure that has value in the desert. If you're in a desert clearing, the Staff of the Sharp Sands also has a sharpness, a sword attached to it, so it does more damage. Note that the little symbol in the lower right corner says, if you're not playing with the desert, ignore this treasure, or you can ignore this treasure because it doesn't have that much. It's not that great, right? Okay, final thing. Let's talk about horses and how they work. Okay, uh, I'm gonna pull up all the horses and put them side by side. I assume there is interest in this. I don't think it's a secret that people know I hate horses in, not hate, it's too strong. I dislike horses immensely in the way they were implemented in Magic Realm because I didn't feel they were that balanced. Not that the game is about balance, but okay, so let's talk about some of these. Let's go left to right. So first off, there's a cost associated with these horses, and they are expensive. So if you these are item cards, okay, these are that's what the wooden plank means, right? These are item cards. So these are not you're not going to find these in a treasure site. You're going to find them at a merchant. So you got to buy them. Ugh, probably going to have to haggle because they're so expensive. Or now suddenly moving into a tile that's got an item, you're like, come on, Warhorse, right? So um, the health of the horse is the in the heart, and that is literally as simple as if it gets hit with that strength, just like a monster or a native, it dies. Okay, the warhorse is armored. Yeah, there's this introduces a limited encumbrance, Tony, in that the number in the red cube is the strength of the horse and to what it can carry. So if you have the light horse, you couldn't have a breastplate. You could have it in your backpack, but you couldn't have a breastplate equipped. Okay, and so the heavy horse and the war horse are stronger, right? Um, how do horses play if items don't have weight rules? So remember, the only thing that have weights to them are is armor in Dragon's Down, right? So you may recall that armor does have a weight to it, and so if you let me just go grab one so I can show what I'm talking about. This does allow me to do if later I wanted to have see if I have one. Uh, sorry, I'm just looking on here. Yeah, let's hang on a second, folks. Um, let's do. Sorry, I'm just deciding which one. Now let's do this one. Oops, I'm accidentally showing something from Wildlands. So this isn't coming in Eastern Reaches. This is something for Wildlands. But so you can see here, like all armor has this weight to it. This Wyvern hide armor is really light. So the only people who couldn't use this would be a witch or a soulless if they were played by a character that didn't have a might cube, right? Because every character has one might cube except for the witch and soulless classes. Um, but the so this probably a bad example. I probably just gave away something for no specific value. But if this had a weight of 2, you could not wear the wyvern hide armor and have a light horse equipped. So yeah, and Teresa, you bring up a good point. This is here such that I could have things like that. I had thought about doing that with legendary sites, perhaps. The idea that if you find the adventurer's corpse or if you find some kind of a locker, if you were strong enough, you could just carry it with you. I always envisioned, somebody walking into town carrying the adventurer's corpse as being just a hysterical visual. In the end, I didn't do that. So, but just know that I did ponder doing some of those. I decided again, rules wise, just adds a layer of complexity. It doesn't necessarily give it value. Okay, so what do these do? There are 2 sets of information on the horse tokens or horse cards, and these are item cards. You don't put them in a spot. That's what the horse icon at the bottom of the banner represents. It goes beside your board, and it gives you these benefits. So if you're on a light horse, you get 2 extra move actions. If you're on a heavy horse, you get an extra move action and you get an equipment spot. If you are on a war horse, you get an extra alert action and you get 2 extra spots, active spots. Okay? So things, and that just represents grabbing them off the saddle or whatever the case may be. The bottom row is what their benefit is in combat. So in this case, right? Let's cover the warhorse first. No benefit. You can place up to 2 cubes. So the warhorse is not super evasive. It relies on its armor to survive. They take wounds just like anything else. They heal at the end of combat, just like monsters and natives do. So you don't have to like spend actions healing your warhorse, or your horse. It just heals, right? Um, but when you have a horse equipped, you ignore your maneuver boxes, right? You cannot play cubes there. You can only play horses or play speed cubes on your warhorse, and this is then what your speed is for the purposes of avoiding attacks. Let's say this warhorse gets killed, right? I'm on the warhorse, it gets killed. I transfer the cubes that were on the warhorse now to me. My horse got killed out from under me. I am now on foot, and that would happen for all subsequent attacks that round. Okay. The heavy warhorse, or heavy horse, is not armored, gives different benefits, and gives you 1 speed cube automatically in combat. And that would be for running away as well as for the maneuver. And the light horse merely adds 2 cubes plus whatever cubes you place on it. So if I'm on a light horse, I'm the witch, and I'm on the light horse, my maneuver speed is 2, full stop, right? Plus any speed cubes I place on here. But as you can imagine, if I have this light horse equipped and I'm armed with a short sword or a dagger or something like that, man, I can put a lot into my attack speed because in essence I'm getting 2 free cubes. The light horse is very fragile. If it gets hit, you're basically it dies. It's only got 2 health. But while it's there, it's really valuable. The cost is commensurate with the value of it. Okay. Questions on the horses? Really straightforward. I think it's a column and like a little over a column of rules, if I'm not mistaken. And it is also an optional rule. So there are 4 of each of these horses, I think is what I settled on in the game. And so that's why they're there, right? So you can yeah, I think there's 4 of each. And so optional rule. Don't play with them if you don't want to. Um, I did have one other thing I was going to show, actually. A little bit of this is a spoiler. So short answer to that is follows the same rules. If you want to, uh, so the short answer is no. You're on a horse. You're on a horse till it dies. Yeah. Yeah, interesting, Tony. It had to do with what the benefits actually were, and it follows my formula, right? Those 2 moves are really valuable for hustling around the map. The warhorse is really great for in combat because so it's and then there's that thing in the middle which is actually a blend, which maybe doesn't give you the best of both worlds. Okay, let me show you something else here. I kind of like it. Looks like I'm like intelligently thinking about whatever I'm presenting here. I kind of like that. These are the 4 classes that are included with the game. Remember, there are daily reveals. I'm going to reveal another daily reveal here today that is coming, and it is an additional class. Okay, so the disciple. You guys may recognize that the spellcasters in the game are all kind of glass cannons, a little bit fragile, etc. Right? What there isn't in the game is except then you have the cleric, who's kind of more of a blend between a warrior and something else, right? So I wanted to provide um, a white, a good magic themed spellcaster who was not fully a glass cannon, but was a little bit more like the other spellcasters of the other colors. Because when I play a cleric in Dragon's Down, I don't feel like I'm that. I feel more like I'm a Dungeons and Dragons style cleric than I do like a spellcaster, like a priest or something along those lines. So that's why I'm adding the disciple. Okay, there's the marauder. Again, desert themed. That image is incorrect. Or not the image. The ability is incorrect. I've since changed it, but this is a fighter through and through. Not all his kind of abilities are put into really health. That just this is a tough fighter that's hard to kill, and plenty of boxes at the cost of having many icons, right? These the attribute icons. Okay, I'm going to close this and come back because I want to save the reveal for the last class. So the Vanguard. This is really fun. This is actually based on a, a class based on a video game called Chivalry. There is a class called the Vanguard who runs at the enemy, and when they do their attack while running, they leap forward and do this very fast attack. That's actually where this comes from, and it actually fits kind of the Crusades aspect of the Middle East, which I want to be culturally careful here because that's not the intent. But the Vanguard gets a +1 to their attack speed when on the first round of combat. So all of their weapons, they're a melee fighter, and sometimes as a melee fighter, you don't want to be in combat that first round, right? The Vanguard is kind of a dichotomy, right? They want to be swinging away in that first round because they could take down a big foe quickly because they can attack so much faster. Okay, the Pit Fighter. This is probably the most asked for capability in the game. This is the idea that I can and ignore the fact it's two daggers. That is one side. The other side does have better weapons. You can equip and attack with two weapons simultaneously. So the pit fighter is a master of, fighting this dude over here and that dude over there. And so you can actually have two one-handed weapons equipped and fight with both of them. So the pit fighter is really fun to play. It's pretty fun, especially if you're like fighting against, and you can attack the same monster. So now this introduces the idea that you could wound and kill a monster by hitting it twice. Okay, let's talk about the most unique class in the game. This is a reveal that will be coming on the campaign. So the concept of a monk, and this is in essence a weaponless fighter. They can carry weapons, they can do their thing, no problem. However, they actually have weapons which are their fists. Their base attack strength is one sword, which means punching a dude in armor, just like doing a headbutt to a guy in a football helmet, not a good idea, right? So it's meaningless if you, without putting any might cubes, attack with your fists. But you can also place up to 3 fists, which means you can kill all the way up to an unarmored guardian using your fists. If you put a cube in that second box, it does not return to your healthy box, it returns to your wounded box. Again, another really, really fun class to play. Okay. Um, I have blown through everything I was going to talk about. We spent about an hour and a half here. Um, Now I really will be quiet for a while and see if there are any questions that people have. And if not, we'll say goodnight and go back to our regularly scheduled lives. Wish I knew exactly what delay I had set for this session so I know how long to wait, but let's see how it goes. Anything appeal? But by the way, anything appeal to you? Even if you don't have a question, is there something that stands out that I talked about that you loathe and you think I'm on the wrong track that you like? What resonated with you the most? Shenanigans, what is cestus? I'm not familiar with that term. Oh, look at you with the spiked gloves. I cannot confirm that there are the stone knuckle gloves in Wildlands as a treasure that you can find, but you didn't hear it from me. Yeah, so I'll answer Lauren's question, which is about and feel free to keep typing, folks. If you type questions, I'll stick around or comments. If you don't, then we'll close it out. Um, I don't have a lot of it developed. That's, I'm working on Wildlands right now, but in working on Wildlands, it generated the 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 thought process. Let me see here. Hold on. I might have one thing to show. I'm so far beyond what I was gonna do. This is what you people do to me. Maybe I don't have it, or I don't know where it is. Give me a second. Give me a second. I don't see it there. Don't see it there. Um, Still looking. Give me a second. You don't see it. I had created a volcano tile as just a template to see if it could work, and it looks phenomenal. Um, but yeah, I don't have the specifics developed yet for how it would all work, but I would assume that I'd keep it to a limited number with each release, and they would have unique monsters and unique rules for each individual tile. So the volcano would have some rules to it that don't apply to any other tile. Okay, let's see. Game will be back in stock. We're selling officially February 16th. We're going to sell the remaining stock. I want to point out the number of quantities available globally, like of the Legend Edition. I'm not joking. It's in like the under 100 copies. And I think for one of the expansions, which again we'll offer it on the next campaign, but in one of the expansions, I think it's like 10 copies, something like that. If really, I don't remember exactly. And I think I seem to recall about 250 copies of the standard edition across the various copies of the game. So it's going to sell pretty fast. I would think. I'm just amazed you have so many more ideas. Core game bucks, so it's kind of you keep going is amazing. Yeah, I don't sleep well, Mike. I'm not joking. When I go to bed at night, and I'm kind of a little bit of a night owl. When I go to bed at night, I typically get up from my desk and I go, the thing I'm going to think about while I'm lying in bed, and I pick a topic. How do I solve this problem? Or what could I do with this treasure? There's this concept. I'll share one more thing. There's a concept of a treasure in Wildlands that I just think is fun. And I don't know. Playtesting may say that this is a stupid idea, but hang on. There's this treasure called the Windswept Mantle. It's loading. I'll share it in just a second. Um, okay, the Windswept Mantle. And what it is if you're targeted with a ranged weapon, your maneuver speed is +1, which makes sense, right? Somebody shooting a missile at you, throwing a rock at you, whatever. The Windswept Mantle actually creates the chaotic air around you to make it so that it's harder to hit you, right? So I have been agonizing over whether that should be a reduction of 1 in the combat, in the might it hits you with, or if it should be an increase in your maneuver speed only for purposes of dodging an attack, right? That was one night I didn't sleep super well. I slept fine, but like at first I was just thinking, oh, what can I do, and what could be the concept of that particular treasure? So those are the kind of things that we're doing. We're getting into that kind of content. Okay, I'd love to have a few more single cube no wound spells, just like little cantrips. Um, yeah, I think I. Let me think for a second. Yeah, I don't think I introduce any in Eastern Reaches, but more spells would absolutely be on the table for future expansions as well. We'll see if that makes it into Wildlands or not. Typically, spells are by far the most difficult thing to design because, as many of you know, there was in the core game there was an exploit in the first printing of the core game where you could use the heal spell to, in essence, be immortal, the way it was written. So, just coming up with the right way to do those things, it's really difficult, and I just don't have the energy to do it every single one. But just know a lot of the spells that made it into Eastern Reaches were users submitted on the Discord server. We're over 700 people there on that now. Okay. All right. Yeah. And Tony, you're spot on. I mean, all of you that commented on that is, spells are cards. That's easy to do, right? So I think I need to focus on getting the heavy stuff out first. And then once that's there, the sky's the limit as to what we can do with the system. Yeah. Okay. I got 24 people watching. I feel like in the we're kind of slowing down on questions. So again, I'll just give it a minute. I just want to thank y'all for coming to listen to some dude talk about his game, as opposed to, I mean, you got other places you can be, I'm sure. I just appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me to talk about this. As you know, I'm available on Board Game Geek and um, on Discord. I'm pretty active on both. This is what sustains me. So I sincerely appreciate the support from the community that I've gotten to date. Working hard to get it so that I can launch Eastern Reaches for you all. And so yeah. All right. With that, thanks everybody for attending. Really appreciate it. Thanks for spending time with me tonight. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.